Hello everybody, welcome. Scotty here from azoffroad.net, and this video is going to be about our most recent of our summer off-road trips down to southeastern Arizona. It was our southeastern Arizona special that just finished up here on our channel, and the point of this video will be to dive a little deeper into the behind the scenes. Maybe you have some frequently asked questions that hopefully we can answer. We've got some specific topics and stuff. Actually, you can see them down below here right now. So if these things interest you, we'll be talking about them today, hoping to answer some questions about this trip and our overall trip making, trip going process. So if you're looking for the big adventure, go out and do stuff, that's not going to be this video. I apologize. I just wanted to make this video and take some time to kind of decompress from the trip, show off a little more footage, talk about a few more things maybe we didn't get to show or talk about in the video, and overall just give you a kind of behind the scenes question and answer session, mainly just of the answers, not so much the questions, but hope you enjoy this video and we are just going to get right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is route planning and navigation when we're on the trip. This is probably one of the most asked questions, and the answer may surprise you. So let's get into the first part of that first. Route planning takes hours and hours of basically looking through Google Earth, looking through four-wheel drive books, just various things online, assembling the route. And that part really is kind of boring. I showed it off a little more last year, but suffice it to say that I spend a lot of time in Google Earth. And basically what happens with all that Google Earth data is that translates into a giant Word document that we carry on the trip. This is the holy grail. Anything we want to know about the trip is in here. So turns, directions, coordinates, mileage, stuff like that, packing lists, whatever we think we may need, we put in here. And just the act of creating this document ingrains everything in my head pretty well, so that when we get out on the trail, it almost comes as second nature. Like, I know I'm going to make this turn after we see this ghost town. I mean, it all just flows together really well. And if we have any questions, well, then we refer back to this. If this doesn't answer it, we typically carry some paper maps, maps of the forest, maps of any BLM land. We carry some books around with us just to kind of reference any questions we might have if that ever happens. Now, it may surprise you, we don't use any apps, we don't use any phones, we don't do any of that. I prefer the old school paper map, just kind of navigating on our own. I don't want to be bogged down with all the technology, which is kind of a goofy thing to say because I have all the cameras and drone, but I feel like having an app and having all the iPad and all that would just add to the chaos when we're out on the trail. The only technological equipment I do carry is this, just a basic GPS device. So if we get lost and we need to navigate to coordinates or send our coordinates to somebody, we have this. This also serves as a track log. So nothing fancy there, just making up that trip itinerary is our main thing. Now the next thing I want to talk about is Kentucky Camp. Kentucky Camp was the first night of our trip and it was pretty awesome. So basically you'll see that we stay at different buildings, cabins on our journeys. Last year we stayed at old ranching cabin up north of the Grand Canyon, and Kentucky Camp was one of two cabin stops that we made on the trip. So it is reservable, yes. So the way that Kentucky Camp works is that it is owned by the federal government. The U.S. Forest Service manages the property, manages the maintenance and everything, and takes care of renting it out to the general public. So you and me are able to just go out, rent the cabin as long as it's open. The nice thing is that there's about, I want to say 12 to 14 cabins throughout the state. Every single one of them is different. Kentucky Camp is definitely one of the more unique, kind of more rustic properties, but they range everything from a ghost town built over 100 years ago to pretty nice, almost resort style ranch houses. The nice thing is that for basically the price of a hotel night, you get a whole cabin to yourself. and it's usually in a very scenic spot. It's always going to be in one of the national forests. It's just a great opportunity. If you want to know more about it, just Google Kentucky Camp. I'm not going to put the link below. I'm not going to do anything. It takes 5 seconds to go Google it, and you'll probably be able to find it pretty quick. I definitely recommend doing it, although the cabin system is getting more popular as more people catch on. So just go look for yourself, try it out. There's cabins literally all over the state, and we've been to almost all of them, but a couple at this point, and each one has just been fantastic. So with that being said, let's talk about the other cabin that we visited. That was Half Moon Ranch. Now, we were downright spoiled with Half Moon Ranch. Not gonna lie there. It was definitely pretty cushy, pretty nice. And honestly, it was kind of like a reset point for the trip. So at this point, this was the third night. We had been camping for one night, and we had been at Kentucky Camp, so we really didn't have access to facilities, any modern facilities other than, rest stops or gas stations, whatever we came across. But to have a night at Half Moon Ranch was kind of like a refresh point. So we were able to shower, able to get a good night's sleep. We had a kitchen to use, we had power to recharge all our cameras, and it was kind of like a regroup before our last stand, which was the last 2 days of the trip. So like Kentucky Camp, Half Moon Ranch can be reserved. I believe Half Moon Ranch was a little bit more expensive, but you're getting more cabin for the price. And if we had another vehicle with us on the trip, it would have been no problem to fit more people in that cabin. Some of the cabins, like I said, do get pretty big. Some are nice and cozy, have a few beds, but overall, just can't speak enough about the cabin experience. It really is fantastic. So hopefully during this talking, I was able to show a little bit more footage from the inside. When we're on the trip and in the main videos, we don't really have time to kind of dwell on like a walk around video. So the nice part of a video like this is that we can show just a little more about these places we visit, and if it's something you might be interested in, that's all the more reason to do this. So now that we covered the cabins, I want to talk about the campsites. Now, like the cabins, we were pretty spoiled with our campsites. The first night of camping was night 2 of the trip. That was up just a little ways out of Bisbee on just this gorgeous ledge that kind of overlooked this little canyon, and it was nice. So how that works, like the route planning, is we string together a bunch of things we want to see, and then we try to make the nights work to where we can camp nearby in the area of what we're doing the next day. Of course, we want kind of a scenic spot, and both of our campsites did not fail in that department. So what I do is I determine the area we want to camp, look at online maps. At least here in Arizona, we have the ability to look at land ownership, and my 2 main types of land that I like to camp on are BLM land and Forest Service land, and those are typically pretty open as far as where you're allowed to camp, what you're allowed to do. At this time in the video, it was filmed back in May. There were fire restrictions in place, so we weren't able to have a fire on either BLM land or forest land, but that's okay because we still had a good time anyway. But I go through and I just kind of look for little plots of land, and the one in Bisbee just happened to be like the perfect little parcel of BLM land. The one in the Chiricahuas was obviously open. That whole mountain range is open. It's national forest, so a lot of camping, a lot of developed campgrounds, but I prefer the kind of dispersed car camping because you're out away from people, you're by yourselves, and it's a little bit more scenic and relaxing, I find, than like a traditional campground. So now that we talked a little bit about kind of the planning and execution of the trip, I want to talk a little bit about the technical aspect of the trip. And behind me you see my drone. I want to talk about my drone just so I can show a little more footage from the trip. We got a lot of drone footage, and it seemed like every time that we flew the drone, it was windy. It could have been perfectly calm 5 minutes before, but as I'm getting my drone ready, huge wind gusts. And maybe it's the time of year, maybe it's the location in southern Arizona, but I was pretty much fighting the wind the whole time. But the drone did fantastic. A lot of the footage turned out fantastic. It appeared in the final cut of the video, and you're seeing some of that bonus footage now. So a little more technical, this is the Phantom 4 Pro. It is the black edition from DJI. Not a sponsor, but just a good product. You can see more of kind of a technical review. About 6 months ago, we made a video comparing this and our old drone. When I get back home to edit, I have a little bit more freedom shooting in 4K. We color grade the footage. It's quite a process. Now, the locations of our flights, typically most of them are decided ahead of time. I like to look at maps, FAA maps, find out where there are airports and whatnot, and I always fly within the legal limits. I just want to make that point in this video. So since we're talking about the drone and kind of a technical side of the trip, post-production, that is where the magic happens. That is what takes so long from when we actually go on the trip to when the video comes out 2 months later. Most of that time is spent editing, creating things, and really just buttoning everything up. So one of my favorite things to do when we get back from a trip is when we're pulling everything off is to see the total size of everything that we captured. And this trip, I think, might be a new record. I forget the exact amount now, but you're seeing on the screen how many hundreds of gig were used to create this trip. That's part of the fun, is that importing it all, sorting it out, and just piecing it together. Recording the voiceovers, making the map that's used in the video, watching back the footage, and just piecing it all together. That takes about a month to a month and a half, depending on how quick I go, but that really is a fun process. Now, technical aspects about this part, I use a custom-built PC. I believe I showed that in last year's Arizona trip. So if you want to know more about that, I'm not going to bore you with those details here. But I use a combination of Pinnacle Studio, DaVinci Resolve, Lightroom, stuff like that are all programs that help make up the final cut, which by now, hopefully you've seen. Otherwise, this video is extremely boring, and I apologize. Anyways, I hope this video was at least a little bit informative, maybe answered a few questions you may have after watching the trip about a process we do, a place we visited, or just kind of overall how we manage our trips. So I just wanted to talk about that. Again, like I said, show a little more footage from the trip and just kind of decompress, let everything calm down, and we'll be back to normal pretty soon. Thank you for watching this video, and more importantly, thank you for watching the whole trip series, all 4 parts, because we make videos all year, but the real bread and butter and the thing I pour most of my time and effort into are these trips, because we have a lot of fun. I love to show it off to people. I love to kind of share that knowledge and experience with people, and that is what makes all this so much fun and what makes it worth it. So thanks for watching this video. Sorry if it was boring. Hopefully it was helpful, but we'll be back in the coming weeks, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Thanks for watching.